Hey everyone, so I wanted to give a quick update about where I am right now and what I am working on as far as magical workings. I'm a little tired. I lost my job about a month ago, so I'm doing my best to do the magic that is born of necessity. So I spent about 4 hours last night on a job application and I was automatically rejected thanks to AI. It was interesting because the job itself seemed like it was something that would be right up my alley, but then of course they automatically rejected me after about 4 hours worth of completing the application. So that's how excited I was about the job that I spent that much time on it. And it just goes to show you that, they can design an entire application process that will result in not one person looking at what it is that you're doing, or worse, you spend 4 hours on something that then, somebody does look at it and they think that everything that you did was a waste of time. So it's, I'm not taking it personally. I'm about to do another video on Buddhism, but still the system is not set up with that sort of rational, let's figure out whether or not this person is right for us based on, normal stuff. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I did a very good job in that automated interview process, as well as the other assessments that they had me take. So yeah, it stings a little bit, but it's more that I don't like. Well, nobody likes being out of work. Nobody likes not knowing, what's going to come next for them in their lives, and that insecurity. But I suppose at the end of the day, I'm sitting in a nice chair. I've got a nice, comfortable, robe on, all of that. But we all have things and concerns and stuff that we're just trying to lock down. So anyway, so I turned to the Jinn. And the term Jinn really covers a lot of ground, and there are varying classes of Jinn that one could potentially work with. I actually was not intending to work with the Jinn directly. I was going to use the services of a magician at Arabic High Magic, and it just didn't work out because I lost my job just before I was going to, reach out to him. So I got to do this kind of, do my best on my own. By the way, very nice magician. I would not recommend or even mention who it was if I didn't think that they were both very skilled and a good person. So anyway, I'm doing this on my own, and I am going to recommend a couple of sites that I'll put in the description. One is Jinn.Wikia.net, where you can look through all of the Jinn that I'm going to mention here. So the Jinn that I wanted to work with were the 7 Djinn Kings of the days of the week, associated with the 7 planets. And surprisingly, there were rather detailed instructions and conjurations, and I did feel like they came through to a certain degree, and I was able to make requests of them, and the exchange was actually relatively simple, and so it's still ongoing. And the request that I had for them was also, relatively simple, especially with the 7 of them coordinating together. I also looked up a few other additional Jinn, and I'll put the link to them in the description as well. But in all, it wasn't too bad. So, of a process, it just took some time. So the things that I saw there were conjurations I'm assuming were transcribed Arabic, that were relatively, I did my best to try to pronounce them. but they were, hey, Michelle. So that's my wife in the background, who you can't see. Uh, the conjurations were not too bad. I got through them, and I used the associated number of times to recite them based on the planetary number. So if you don't know the planetary number, it goes from fastest to slowest, or slowest to fastest. So slowest to fastest, it's Saturn 3 times, Jupiter 4, Mars 5, and so on and so forth, until you get to Mercury, until you get to the moon, which you're supposed to recite 9 times, or whatever. Associate the number 9 with it. So if you ever look at magical squares, a 3 by 3, the Saturn square is 3 by 3, and the numbers add up to 15 in each row or column, and so on and so forth. It's not just any magic square, but it is, you get those are the attributes of it. So there was a conjuration. For a lot of them, there was a seal, which I would, or a sigil, which I would print off. And other times, you could obviously make the associated incense that they had listed. I chose to forego the incense, just because, I live in a shared space. I didn't feel like going outside into the allergen laden San Antonio air. San Antonio and Austin are both terrible for allergies, by the way. In fact, I can feel my sinuses scrunch up as I'm talking. And so there was the conjuration, there was the sigil, there was, and for one particular, the King Al-Madhab, also known as Al-Mutib, it depends on how you, there were multiple spellings, I'll just put it that way, which means the golden one. There was a seal that you would make that was a hexagram. You would put his name, his nickname in the center, and then his full name in each of the triangles along the outside. And then around that, you would write this 30 digit number that you had to write that 360 times. So with my little 8.5 by 11, I went around it and filled up the entire page, and I flipped it over and did it all again. I looked at it through the up against the light so I could see where the hexagon ended, and I just went around that hexagon until I had done it 360 times. Now there's a lot to be said for magic like that, right? And if you've seen Liber Loga, which I have a video up on that. Yeah, you keep going. You think that's a lot, with your maybe 10,000 times you write down a number, digit. No, there's a lot more you do with Liber Loga. So anyway, but that was the only king where they saw that, or they had that kind of sigil that you would write up. So anyway, I prepared all the materials, and over the course of a week, which was I think it was the end of just a couple days ago, come to think of it, I would recite the conjuration at the planetary hour and the planetary day. So the planetary day is very important. So the planetary hours the planetary days are self-explanatory, right? Saturn's day, Monday the moon's day, and so on and so forth. Wednesday goes to Mercury, Tuesday goes to Mars, and Thursday is Jupiter's day, and then Friday is Venus's day. So, and the rest is all, Sunday, the sun. So I would prepare all of these conjurations, and the planetary hours are very simple. You basically divide the day and night each. So from sunrise to sunset, you divide by 12, and then each one of those hours is an hour give or take, right? If it's summertime, then the planetary hours of the day are going to be longer than the planetary hours of the night, because each of them are, the day and the night each get 12, you know. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, that's reversed, but I'm speaking from the northern hemisphere. So, because, in the, well, I guess the summer, it fits too for the southern hemisphere. I'm a little sleep deprived, but you get the idea. I'm at the same time of year. So anyway, so I would plan all this, right? And I had the conjurations ready to go. So what did I actually do? Well, I did the usual activation of Enochian furniture, saying the names of the letters on the outside of the table. Then, and all of this is in Lon Milo Duquette's book and in my book. Activate all of that. And then I do the usual calling, first call, second call. And with the first and second call, that's really all you need to use to work with the Enochian heptarchy. And that was all I really needed to do and all I wanted to do, other than the actual conjurations to the Djinn Kings themselves. So I went ahead and called the Angelic King and Prince of that day and hour. If you're calling the king, for that day, you call him on his day and hour, and the king has authority over the prince, so the king can, get the prince to come along. Otherwise, if you're just calling the prince on their own, there's a separate time of day, a separate planetary hour that you call them, but still on their planetary day, ideally. Most ideally, you'll, if you're in a pinch, you can always call on the Angelic King Karmara, who will has in his power basically to say anytime, any day you can come in, you angels of the heptarchy, and work with the practitioner. So anyway, I would call on any given day. I would call the Angelic King and Prince of that day during the planetary hour of that day. So usually sunrise is the best time to do it. Otherwise, roughly around 2, 3 o'clock. Or 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe maybe quarter to 9, or quarter to 10 rather, in the summer when you have the whole silly time shift. So, but I would call on the king and prince, and the Angelic King and Prince, and say, hey, please facilitate the conjuration of this Jinn King associated with that planetary day. And by the way, also please bless them, and blah, 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 blah. So you are calling on the angels whom God has given you authority to call on, and then you are asking the Angelic King and Prince to then, bestow their blessings, such as God will allow, on the Jinn King. And therefore, the Jinn King is not only given help to arrive during your conjuration, but you are providing them something in advance. It's like you arrive at the court of somebody bearing gifts, right? Like the 3 magi, right? They came bearing gifts to the Christ child. So, and they did that in advance, right? They are coming respectfully and all of that. So that's what I did. And the Djinn Kings really did strike me, at least when I worked with them, and maybe I was predisposed to sort of have a certain view of them. Okay. But they seemed basically, as they're described, as like, sort of not quite reaching into the angelic sphere of like directly working with the planets or the stars or the heavens, as it were. But they were definitely not just of like this world, but they had like this reach. It's sort of like, I don't want to like overly simplify it, but like maybe, into 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet into the air, right? That was the sense I got whenever I would talk with them. If necessary, or if they allowed it, what I would do is I would also scry their names. So Al-Mutib, I would go ahead and, if given permission, I could say the call to the Aethers, and then instead of, O you heavens which dwell in the Aether names, such as Tex or as Lil, I would say, O you heavens which dwell in Al-Mudhib, and then, have a vision of his essence, right? I made sure to get permission. So call on the angels, the angels of the day, the angelic king and prince of that day, do the conjuration that I already had from that Jinn wiki site. Obviously already would have printed out or drawn the sigil. And then finally, after sort of having a discussion in vision with that Djinn King, if they were interested or up for it, I could also scry their essence using using that cult of the Aethers. And, talking shop, talking turkey, I would go ahead and, just make my petition after the end of a full week. I would, I had called all of them, and then the following day, that Sunday, so I guess it wasn't yesterday, it was the week before. I'm losing track of time. But I called all 7 of them basically and said, hey, okay, now that I've established diplomatic relations with each of you, would you please, I am calling on you and asking you for this. And they were fine with it. They did request one thing. I'm not going to get into it. It wasn't like, it's not a huge deal. It's really not a huge deal, right? It's like, I'm being told right now not to tell you what it is, but trust me, it's like, you'd be like, oh, it's that? Really? Okay. So, but yeah, they were very, as long as you approach them very respectfully and, are generous and giving to them in advance, why would they not be, okay with you? So yeah, that was my experience. I also called on, I called on the 7 Djinn Kings, and I also called on 3 additional Kings of Prosperity because I do need the financial help right now. Okay, so yeah, that's my process on calling the Djinn Kings. Feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat or in the comments section, I guess. Drop your comments in the comments. And let me know how, if it could be about this, could be about anything else. I am considering or thinking about, I'll do a separate video on this, but I'll go ahead and the spoiler alert, I'm considering doing some live Enochian scryings. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I may just like create a Google form. In fact, I'll just go ahead and say that's what I'll do here. To do, let's say, the first 5 Enochian Aethers as a group, and just have a little bit of processing time afterwards. Do something kind of donation based there, just to, ideally, I've usually done that for free, but maybe something relatively inexpensive for those of you who are interested. So anyway, I got a couple more videos coming up after this, including a more detailed description of what I was just kind of toying with. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Again, any questions about Enochian, feel free to reach out at Enochian.Today. If you're looking to have an astrological reading, or if you want to have your name scribed, that's something that I did just in the last week for someone, and that went relatively well. And yeah, I'm open to a lot of different things right now, as you've probably seen from my other site, SkyMirror.Today, which you can also see on my YouTube channel called SkyMirror. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.